So, looking around the room, who wants to come up and do the first flash talk? Eleanor, up you come. Round of applause for Eleanor. Okay, so, contestant number one, what's your name, where you come from?
I'm Eleanor. I'm the test architect at Shop Direct.
Woo!
And,
yeah.
Continuation of Shop Direct night.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a bit of a flash talk.
Well, there you go, flash away.
Flash away. Okay, so my world is changing, Shop Direct is changing, and I need your help. Hold that thought. So, test architect, I'm working in the test engagement space. So I'm dealing sort of 3 months in advance of where your test executing. So I'm looking at the engagement, I'm looking at the portfolio, I'm looking at how I translate the portfolio of change demand into IT, into test demand. I'm building teams, I'm looking at the environment, I'm scheduling. And the world is changing because the way we are based in the core back-end systems is still quite waterfall based. So there's some really good things going on. You've seen about just the demo there. In the ecom world, we're quite cutting edge. We're mobile, with mobile and ecom. We've got continuous integration, we're agile, and that's the great sexy stuff. The back end stuff, everything that when you press a button on the website and we want the information, all those core systems from marketing, from the business, from logistics, all the fulfillment and the payment, that's still quite waterfall driven. So my process is a sort of waterfall. So the challenge that we've got in Shop Direct is IT transformation. We've been challenged by Andy, change, shift left, deliver the change faster. And I need your help in doing that. I've got a complex portfolio. The challenge is the change going through that portfolio is doubling to about 60 million next year. I've got different methodologies. I've got waterfall butting up against agile. And I've got a team of about 60 people. So what my ask is out here tonight is there anybody else working in this space? If so, could we have a chat? Because I'd like to know what you're doing. I'd like to know what tooling you're using. Can I start making change now rather than wait for the IT transformation project that's coming? So I'm empowered to look at the processes I'm doing and start to say, how do I do that better? How do I shift left? If not, is there anybody in your organisation that you think would be useful for me to talk to? And I'd love to have a chat with them. So that's my ask, is if anybody is working in the space I'm working in and thinks they could help me make some improvements, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. So, flash talk number 2. I'd rather it wasn't a Shop Direct person. So. Because we are seen to be running the... Is there anybody who isn't Shop Direct that wants to do a flash talk? Is there anybody who's not Shop Direct that wants to do a flash talk? Come on. Round of applause. Contestant number 2, what's your name? Where'd you come from?
I'm Ian Maguire, and I'm a senior tester at Sony Playstation.
Excellent. Away you go.
Hello. So Lee singled me out again. Thanks, Lee. So last time I was talking about accessibility testing, but this time something that has come up a lot, certainly in PlayStation, but I think it's something that in testing in general needs to be looked at more. Explore the differences between exploratory type testing and experience-based testing. It's a lot. I don't know how it works in some of the other sort of, like software and more web-based testing, but definitely it's something within games especially, where there's a lot of confusion about what the difference is between exploratory testing and experience-based testing, because they're both not structured tests the way that we would go, you write your test. Does it pass? Does it fail? Can we regress that? Can we confirm that test and that kind of thing? It's more based on the person who's doing it. Like, have you got testers who are experienced enough and have been doing it long enough, as was mentioned in one of the earlier talks, where they can go, that'll have a bug. That's one there, definitely waiting to happen. But because they can base it off systems that exist already, ones that they've previously worked on, similar systems, or the things that they've talked to people about where, oh, I've heard of this problem, but they can use solution-based thinking to overcome that, maybe before it happens in the case of some developers, or they can advise it. But the main sort of the crux of the matter is when we're talking about exploratory, a lot of people think that you can't measure it and you don't get any value out of it. It's just sort of like, well, go and test, I guess, see what breaks. But if we look at experience-based testing, we have things like checklist testing. We have, I mean, there's tons of methodologies, but if you look up just experience-based testing as a whole, you'll see things like session-based testing, for example, is a really good one, especially on something like web-based stuff where you can get users and like basically get them to play around, but within a certain area that you know is having trouble or usability problems or accessibility. And basically what it comes down to at the end of the day is knowing how you want the audience to interact with your product, as was covered earlier, where people will always find new ways to explore or break it in a way that we as testers have blinkers, and we can't help but just go, that's not how you're supposed to do it. Or developers, that's not how it was intended to be used. So the more that we can rely on experienced testers and people who are completely new to something, the better. Try and get the mix there. So, thank you.
Well done.
So I'm going to pull rank and choose the last flash talk that we're going to have. For those of you that were at our last meet-up, at Shop Direct we have apprentices, and at our last meet-up we had an apprentice come to the front, 6 months of work experience, 6 months of testing experience, straight from college into Shop Direct, and he grew a big pair of balls, excuse the French, and came and stood in front of you guys and did a lightning talk. Now our second apprentice is just about to do the same. Now imagine being a 19-year-old guy and he's going to come up and stand up in front of 90 people. That is pretty nervous. I get nervous stood up here all the time and I'm used to it. But for these guys, this is a great life experience. It's about building character. It's about building life experiences, isn't it? So I'd like you to welcome our last lightning talk, and it's Ethan.
Hello, I'm Ethan. I've only been testing for about 8 months, as I said. I was an apprentice. I'm only 18, Lee. Thanks for knowing my age. So, when I started testing, obviously, as a fresh, someone who just turned 18, got a new job, I went and told my friend, I said, I've just started, I'm a tester. And immediately, my friend just went, oh. He immediately got a bored look on his face. He wasn't too interested. He thought it was a bad job. And I was like, why are you acting like that? And basically, he wanted to be a game developer or someone who goes and tests games. And he looked into that sort of stuff, and he found videos which showed him really, really old methods of testing games. And I'll tell you, the old methods were basically, say you want to test how you drive in a game. You'd get a car, you'd drive into a wall 500 times in all different locations and see how it works. So for E4, that testing could be the most boring job in the world. At the time, I didn't know how to change his perspective. So I couldn't change his perspective at all, and he thought it was a boring job. Later on, we had an exploratory testing course with Duncan Nisbet, and he used this board game. It's called Zeno. Yeah. You basically get game pieces, you create a rule in some way that those a pattern that those game pieces follow, and then people have to take guesses by arranging them game pieces in a way and asking, does that follow the rule? And I thought that was a really, really interesting way of changing someone's perspective on test. But I didn't want to go and buy that board game to show it to my mate just to show it once. So I tried to find a similar way to change his perspective, now knowing a lot more. This was about 6 months in, without having to buy anything. So what I did was I went through my friends, checked my friends' interests and see how could I apply that to test. And what I basically found was there was a game that he was really interested in that was basically test in a nutshell. It was a way of testing that had been turned into a really fun game, and it was called Besiege. The idea is you have a goal, some sort of goal, move from A to B, or knock down this building, and you build a vehicle with all sorts of stuff in order to do that. So what you would do is you build a vehicle with all different parts, and you test that and see if that worked. And then it wouldn't work because you're awful when you first start. So you do it again, and you do it again with a different vehicle, and you do it again, and then you get so good that instead of just say you got to go from A to B, instead of just getting something on wheels and going to A to B, you build a helicopter. So not only would you find the way to do it, you'd find a completely different way to do it. So I showed him this game, and I said, this is a way of testing. This is testing in a nutshell. And basically, it completely changed his perspective. He ended up wanting to go into test again after hating it so much, and he's actually hoping to apply for an apprenticeship at the company that I've applied for. So that worked well. But how's that relevant? Well, in Shop Direct, we want to try and change the culture of how people view test. We're evolving, but people don't really know that. We're trying to change, and that's a method that we could use to try and do that. If we can find an interesting way that relates to people, to show them a different perspective of test, that can spark an interest, and that can be a way that we can change it. And that's just my thought. So that was my talk.
How do I follow that? 18 years old, and he's just stood up in front of 80-odd people. It's gone out on Facebook. It'll go up on YouTube. It'll go worldwide. You'll be trending on Facebook in a couple of years, I tell you. Listen, I'm not going to keep you any longer. A huge thank you to you guys. Yes, come on. A huge thank you to Amanda, who, I don't know whether she's still in the building, but a great talk. Yeah, Amanda at the back. Thank you, Amanda. Huge thanks to the two guys at the front, Vara and Andrew, for the BDD talk. To Phil, the photographer, not rude, but just, photographer, cameraman. To Chris, Amy, the girls that have helped out. We do need help putting the room back how we found it, so the chairs stacked up at the back, any beer bottles in bins, etc. We do need some help with that. But please, come and join us in Rigby's for a beer! Thank you very much.